Welcome back to the Work of Wellbeing podcast. I'm Amy Green, your host from The Wellness Strategy, and we're here to talk about all things personal and professional wellbeing. This podcast is designed to help you become curious and consider your everyday wellbeing strategies, what you do for your own wellness, and how you can start to transform your life both in and out of the workplace. Sit back, grab a cup of tea, maybe grab a notepad, a journal, and get ready to feel really enlightened about what wellbeing used to be, what it is now, and where you can take your own wellness strategy. Welcome. In this episode, we're going to talk about having a staff wellbeing framework and what to do with it. I have worked with a number of schools in the past few years, helping them to create staff wellbeing frameworks, and I know different schools have staff wellbeing frameworks as well. I think they're a great thing. I think it's really wonderful to have them, and I know other wellbeing frameworks exist in the world too, and it really does help to provide a lens or an overview or a way of thinking about what is staff wellbeing here for us. And I think sometimes, like any framework, staff wellbeing framework, learning and teaching framework, whatever it might be, they can kind of just become a little bit like a nice decoration and not really drive any action. Now, this can happen too, even if you've gone through the process, even if you've invested a lot of time in it, consulted staff, reviewed it, used data, staff voice, aligned it to values. You've got a beautiful document. It looks great on the walls, and it really does outline what staff wellbeing means to you in your school, but it's just that, right? A pretty poster and a nice document. So having a framework is a brilliant first step. But the impact actually comes when we live it, when we embed it, when we integrate it into everything that we do. So I want to talk you through how to make your staff wellbeing framework the lens that really guides change and decision-making in your school rather than just being a pretty poster. I also want to say this is one of the things that I do when I come into schools. If you're looking to create a staff wellbeing framework, it's certainly something I can help you with. And there is a process around collecting staff voice data. There is then a process around using a representation of staff to go through reviewing the data and using it to drive the staff wellbeing framework. There's different ways to do it, but we also teach this inside SWIM as well. So if you're thinking you want to create a staff wellbeing framework and you don't have one, there's some options for you. But let's come back to how do we use it, right? So let's start here. First of all, it should not be something that sits on your shelf, on the wall, something that's like, oh yeah, this looks good on the website, but when someone says, how do you use it? You're like, let me get back to you on that. We don't want to be doing that, right? It should become something that's visible, actionable, referenced in daily decisions, and that begins with asking the question, how do we keep this alive? It begins with coming back to, what are we going to do with it? Now, there are a few ways you can do this. Here are some different things I recommend. First of all, in schools who have really embedded staff wellbeing and they've created a framework that represents everything that happens in their workplace, what they understand is everything that happens in the workplace links to staff wellbeing. Now, this is key. Yeah, because it's not separate. How we work isn't separate to staff wellbeing. Our systems and processes are not separate to wellbeing. Morning teas are not only for staff wellbeing. There are different ways of looking at it, and a really cohesive framework brings it all together. Now, we know cool frameworks, are usually colorful, they might be aligned with the branding of the workplace, and they usually have some kind of icon or visual cue as well. The visuals is actually a really important piece of the process when it comes to a staff wellbeing framework, because, we see things visually, we want to take it in, so don't underestimate the power of that either. But when you're communicating your staff wellbeing framework, you will have an icon or a visual cue, whatever it might be. This is a really great thing to put on different communications, different pieces of work you might be doing, different events you're running, to link it back to staff wellbeing. So for example, in a staff wellbeing framework, it's very common to have something around connection or community or relationships. And when you're putting on a morning tea, the purpose of that is usually to build connection. So you would put the connection icon on top of that. Yeah, that's how we know that this is to support staff wellbeing. Maybe you're doing something around reviewing a system or reviewing a process in your workplace, in your school, and you think, we want to review this, we want to refine it, we want to make it more impactful, we want to use new technologies, we're going to use some AI workflows. Brilliant. That's actually all connected to how we work. Now, in some frameworks, there are areas, domain, pillars, whatever you want to call them, linked to working well or productivity engagement or high-performing teams, whatever it is. That icon sits there. Yeah, that's a really great way to be able to reflect or show that. Or maybe it's the end of a year and you are, or at the end of a project, and you're reviewing the tasks and you're going through a process of what worked, what didn't work, what do we want to do differently, what would we not do next time. And so that review process is actually about strengthening engagement. It's about creating autonomy. And so you might have something in your framework that lends itself to that, and you would put the icon there. It's bringing it all together. Another thing that you can do if you have your framework is allocate one meeting probably per quarter or per school term to reviewing it and asking, what are we doing well? What have we slipped? What's not going so great? And what's the next small action we can take? That means you're constantly getting staff voice data around your framework and what actions to drive. The other thing I'd suggest too is continually, if you're leading it, whether you're a leader, whether you're on the staff wellbeing committee, if you're in charge of staff wellbeing, whatever your role is, I would encourage you to continually be sharing it, maybe every 2 to 3 weeks, whether it's a quick recorded video, whether it is at a meeting and saying, hey, over the past few weeks, we've been doing X, Y, Z around strategic development, around strategic change work, around this decision we've made, and it fits into the staff wellbeing action areas, or it fits into the staff wellbeing priorities because of this. And so you're showing them how the things that are always happening behind the scenes link to staff wellbeing. The other thing to do with it is definitely see it as a whole school lens. Now, whether you're rolling out a new initiative, whether you're rolling out a new inner school planning or assessment calendar, designing a new meeting structure, you have to come back to, how does this support wellbeing? Of staff? How does it support staff wellbeing? Which area of staff wellbeing does it support? You have to know if you're bringing in anything new, if you're making a change, if you're reviewing something. It has to actually then become part of staff wellbeing, and the framework is the lens through which you do that. So if you have something in your actions and behaviors in your staff wellbeing framework that says we consider the time and capacity of staff to meet deadlines, and then you're reviewing your calendar, well, to support staff wellbeing, you have to think about staff time and capacity when you're putting things on the calendar, because that's what the action is around supporting staff wellbeing. Then you might share with everyone, when we were reviewing the calendar, we decided to extend this deadline and we decided to take that item out because we realized that in terms of supporting time and capacity of staff, it wasn't quite going to work, and we really value staff wellbeing. That's how we do it. Yeah. So you cannot just put it on a wall and expect it to implement itself. That is not going to happen. The other thing to consider with your framework is that it is definitely part of the I, we, us structure, or the individual, the team, and then the whole environment, whole school workplace. So there are things that an individual needs to do, can do, and must do to support their well-being. So they might look at the staff well-being framework and go, okay, what things can I action for myself? You might have some of these things in your annual goal setting for tasks, in your strategic planning of teams and things that they're going to focus on, whatever it might be. Individuals identify their target area. Maybe that's what they're getting coaching and feedback on throughout the year, professional development, whatever it is. There's then a layer around teams, and teams actually need to have some time to review the framework and think, okay, as a team, what are we doing well? What are we not doing so well? And how do we actually set some goals and strategic action items for ourselves as a team to review the work we're doing? And then the same as a whole school. Now, the whole school is usually left up to the wellbeing committee, or it's left up to leadership team. And of course, if it's whole school anything, there does need to be someone, usually the leader, principal in a school, whoever it is, that says yes or no. We understand that. But from there, then we need to recognize it feeds down. So I always like to think it's done top down, bottom up, and middle out. It is absolutely not one person or a leadership only role to implement staff wellbeing or a staff wellbeing framework. What the framework does, though, when we're thinking about I, we, us, or individual, team, whole workplace, is that it makes it accessible. We have shared consistent language. It's plain language, yeah? It's not something that is hard to understand. It's very explicit. But the framework isn't actually the end goal of improving staff wellbeing. It is more like the start. It's the thing we want to do, so now we can move into integration. So let it show up: meeting agendas, strategic planning, staff wellbeing, staff welcome packs, onboarding, when you're doing feedback surveys, when you're thinking about what your school values are in day-to-day conversation. Because when staff can see that wellbeing is threaded through everything, they begin to trust that it's not just a ticker box. Yeah, that's how we get that cultural shift. That's how we create change. That's how we make staff wellbeing real and not just a pretty poster. Now, if you are sitting here and you're thinking, we need to do our staff wellbeing framework better, we need an implementation plan, or maybe you just need a framework altogether, let me know. I'm happy to help, whether it's through Swim, whether it's through working with your school closely. Absolutely, let me know what that might be. But also, if you've liked this, share it with others. Let me know your thoughts online. It's really important to know that a staff wellbeing framework is not just a pretty poster. As always, I hope you have a wonderful day, evening, night, morning, whatever time of day it is, and I will see you somewhere soon. Bye. Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode. I really do hope you have enjoyed it. The information discussed today was just that, information only. It's not specific advice. If you take action following something you heard today, it's important to make sure that you get professional advice about your unique situation before you proceed, whether that advice be legal, financial, accounting, medical, or otherwise. Please reach out to me if you have any questions or if there's anything else I can do to support your own wellbeing and wellness journey, whether it's another topic you'd like me to discuss or whether it's support in your school, workplace, or individually. And if you do know someone who might benefit from listening to this, please remember to tell them about it, share the episode with them, or suggest my Instagram, my website, or LinkedIn where they can find out more about me and what I do. And as always, I will see you in the next episode.